Would the leader agree that all these allegations are extremely serious and damaging to the borough? And isn't it time to put Oldham first and politics second?
Oldham Council accused of failing to listen to sexual abuse victims. Seems to be the same old story, doesn't it?
First, the council facing allegations it failed to listen to girls who said that they were being targeted by men for sexual abuse.
Rochdale had, and has still got, issues of grooming. Rochdale was not listened to. The victims were not believed. In this case, one of the victims was actually told by the social workers that she's an attention seeker.
Oldham Council is accused of failing to respond when their social services department was warned about grooming.
Yes, we can reveal now how one victim who spoke exclusively to this programme was said by a social worker to be attention-seeking when she reported being groomed.
When she clearly outlaid systematic grooming and abuse.
Sam is a survivor. At the age of 12, she was repeatedly raped by a gang of Asian men from the town. In 2007, ringleader Shakil Chowdhury was jailed for 6 years.
I got lost, asked somebody for help who was a taxi driver and asked for help to get home. He didn't, and he took advantage of the situation. He assaulted me, invited 4 other people who all assaulted me.
To make it worse, this lady's abuser's not even been brought to task.
Only one of her attackers was ever convicted. Sarwar Ali was charged but never faced trial. While on bail, it's thought he fled the country.
Because of this now, Oldham Council have been accused of failing to listen to sexual abuse victims, which they're clearly not.
Sam believes what happened could and should have been prevented. These Oldham Social Services reports, obtained exclusively for ITV News, show that months before her ordeal, she was talking about having sexual relationships with men she'd met online. While concerns were raised about her vulnerability, and she was warned about the dangers of the internet, Sam was described by one social worker as being attention-seeking.
It's shocking the fact that the social services was like that, and how they just brushed it under the carpet and didn't actually deal with the problem.
This has been independently handed over to another organisation to look into it. The only problem being is that they're only prepared to look at the years 2012 to 2013.
Oldham Council recently announced it was appointing an independent expert to scrutinise safeguarding practices in the borough. A review examining the response to concerns focusing solely on years 2012 and 13, when grooming gangs were alleged to be targeting young people in children's homes and through taxi firms and shisha bars. But only last week it instead handed over responsibility to the ongoing inquiry into historical child sexual abuse ordered by the Greater Manchester Combined Authority.
Is that acceptable? Why don't you be a bit more comprehensive than that? Why don't you go back as far as you can possibly go back? For a council to put out a statement, as well as ensuring a rigorous approach to reviewing historic practice, this approach will also ensure that Oldham benefits from being one of the first boroughs to implement recommendations that will set new standards for safeguarding. Doesn't that sound fine and dander?
Current basis, which is that it would look at events only from 2012 and 13, it doesn't fully explore the grooming which has been known to take place in Oldham historically, particularly from the 2006 period and onwards from that. So as a result, the real context of any failings that might have occurred will not be explored.
In 2012, around the time of the Rochdale grooming convictions, similar concerns were being raised with Oldham Council about the vulnerability of young girls in this town. Indeed, within a matter of months, a councillor had been sacked for leaking a confidential police memo warning of the extent of the problem.
They're on top of it. If they was on top of it, would you had grooming victims per se? Within this report, it even explains that one of the groomers at some point actually worked for Oldham Council.
Also of interest could be the activities of this man. Shabir Ahmed was the ringleader of Rochdale's infamous grooming gang who called himself Daddy.
This chap had the nickname The Daddy. I mean, what's going on here? Is this complicit behaviour? Is this stupidity? Or is this just woeful failings?
Granada Reports has discovered claims that prior to his conviction, he was employed by Oldham Council. It's led to calls for an inquiry over the entire period the town was suspected of links to paedophile gangs.
Looking at just 1 year with such a bad record for adhering to the citizens of Oldham is not sufficient at all.
One of the concerns which I did have was that I visited one of the children's homes. I was told, by the officer in charge that there was Asian men turning up at night and getting the young girls to go out. I was told that we couldn't stop it.
The next question has been submitted by Jackie Stanton, and I call upon Mrs Stanton to ask her question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The reputation of Oldham Metropolitan Borough Council appears to be at an all-time low, with some residents describing this current council as the worst in the history of the borough. Some of the dissatisfaction can be traced back to the planning function of the council and the appalling planning committee meeting held in July earlier this year. It continues with the extremely serious allegations of child sexual exploitation. There are allegations appearing daily on social media relating to alleged mismanagement and poor decision making by senior officers of this council. There are also suggestions that the councillor's code of conduct has been breached by the leader and his deputies. This compounded by the leader refusing to verbally answer a valid question submitted to a recent cabinet meeting by a Moorside resident. Would the leader agree that all these allegations are extremely serious and damaging to the borough? Will he tell us how he and the Chief Executive intend to deal with them? And will he tell us if he's capable of restoring confidence in this council? Does he further agree that Oldham and its residents deserve better? And isn't it time to put Oldham first and politics second?
I call upon Councillor Fielding to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and may I thank former Liberal Democrat Deputy Leader of Oldham Council, Mrs Jackie Stanton, for her question. I do need to address the issue around the allegation that I refused to answer a valid question submitted to a recent Cabinet meeting. I did not. The question was ruled out of order by the monitoring officer for reasons which were communicated to the resident who asked it. But to move on to the points that you've raised. Over the last few months, there have been daily postings on social media about planning and historic safeguarding incidents. These allegations have been combined with a series of personal online attacks on councillors, residents, MPs and council officers, and often come from people with a clear political agenda, such as the former Liberal Democrat Deputy Leader of Oldham Council stood before us. We will always take action where appropriate, including the recently announced review into historic safeguarding led by Dr. Mark Peel. Too often, however, the allegations and claims made online are barefaced lies, designed purely to... I'll say that again, are barefaced lies.
Sam was described by one social worker as being attention-seeking.
Designed purely to...
Can I just remind the public that we did listen to the question, and I would now ask you to listen to the reply without interruption. Thank you.
find the most appropriate pace to pick up this answer. Too often, however, the allegations and claims made online are barefaced lies designed purely to stoke fears and score political points. Mrs Stanton is absolutely correct to say that this is damaging to the borough. Day in and day out in Oldham, police officers, social workers, health workers, teachers, community groups, doctors, nurses and youth workers work hard to protect children and vulnerable adults.
Sam was described by one social worker as being attention-seeking.
Day in, day out, our people are cleaning the streets, caring for our older residents or planting trees. Our people see the lies, the racism and the negativity. They see the posters online that are the usual suspects who never miss an opportunity to talk Oldham down. Like most places, Oldham has its fair share of challenges. The statement I've just made to Council highlights some of the many ways we're stepping up to address those challenges with a positive, energetic approach that stands in stark contrast to a lot of the online debate where nothing is ever good enough, everybody is corrupt and we're scared of our neighbours. That's not the Oldham I know. The Oldham I grew up in and the Oldham in which I live today is one where people support each other, where they get out doing community clean-ups, play in the Saddleworth Brass Band contest, raise money for charity and have a chat with the stall holders on Tommyfield Market. I will always encourage anybody who has concerns about anything happening in our borough to raise them through the appropriate channels. But I'd also encourage people to think twice about the things they read online and the motivations of the many people doing the posting. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
You are being asked to leave. Okay.
Disruption at a recent meeting of Oldham Council. Residents in the public gallery refused to leave after demanding answers about an investigation into historical allegations of sexual grooming.
In 2012, around the time of the Rochdale grooming convictions, similar concerns were being raised with Oldham Council about the vulnerability of young girls in this town. Indeed, within a matter of months, a councillor had been sacked for leaking a confidential police memo warning of the extent of the problem.
It's led to calls for an inquiry over the entire period the town was suspected of links to paedophile gangs.
The one thing it has to be clear, comprehensive and understandable, because people will not accept anything what there's any smell or feel a cover-up.